Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Well, it truly is a joy to meet with you all. I've been watching the process of Clear Mountain Sangha over the years with great appreciation, and feel very delighted to be able to be part of this Sangha today. I know that Ajahns Kovilo and Nisabo are on the move at the Mo. I just saw the wonderful recording of them with Ayya Santusika and Ayya Chitananda. Many of you will have seen down in California. Very beautiful conversation that they shared with us all. And it's just wonderful that the Venerables, the Ajahns, are having a chance to meet with other monastics. We cherish our brothers very much, the Bhikkhuni Sangha, their friendliness, their warmth, and our shared family, really, shared community is something very precious. So my heart's very joyful at this moment, and very, very happy to be with you. My feeling right now is to speak a little bit about how we see the world, friends, how to relate to the world skillfully and in a way that enables us to find peace, kind of chart our course peacefully, safely, with the guidance of our great teacher, the Buddha. And I do feel we live in quite chaotic times, and also times of confusion, you know. It's difficult really to quite know what's going on when we look at the news or hear the news. We can only ever know a very small amount, and it's always going to be necessary to have a rather large question mark next to anything that we take in from the world around us. And we know this as practitioners, how perception is like a mirage, how this consciousness is like a magician's trick. We're being fooled on a regular basis. And so this is helpful to enable more clarity. It's the clarity that realizes that we don't know. You know, the humility and the ability to recognize how much we're floundering around in the dark in samsara. And knowing this, recognizing this, that we can't quite know what's going on and we can't quite believe what we're being told to believe, and we don't really have much handle on reality here. This enables us to be very humble, to be very present, and to seek refuge where refuge can be found, isn't it, friends? There's no refuge in this thinking mind. There's no refuge in the rational, logical cogitations. Where is the refuge to be found? And how do we find our way peacefully through it all? Thank goodness, literally, thank goodness, we have the precepts. Number one guide to keep us safe, keep us out of danger, to contain our energies, to make us harmless, so that we can coexist here in a beneficial way, in a peaceful way. And then the right view, how we choose to manifest in the world. We have all the guidance that we need, don't we, friends, from the Buddha to enable us to manifest in a way that is skillful. Wholesome, yes, virtuous, and also clear, wise, and beneficial. And for me, right view is always something worth speaking about. I'm sure each one of us could say a few words about right view. What is right view for you? Right now, what comes to me is it's the understanding that there is suffering here and that the cause of suffering is the mind that kind of rebels against reality, the mind that wants or doesn't want, or the mind that's reeling around in confusion. When we follow our conditioning, we're often compelled really to see the world in ways that are deluded. I like to think of the Vipassana, these four aspects of delusion, the tinted lenses or the distorted lenses through which we see the world. We do have a tendency to see permanence where there's only change, to see self where there is no self, isn't it? To see pleasant where there's only suffering, and to see beauty where there's actually not beauty. And we can flip that around, can't we, and say, well, there are these characteristics of reality that are true and reliable and that provide us with a suitable way of seeing, a clear way of seeing the world. And I think perhaps I'll focus on this. Anicca anatta dukkha, this way of viewing the world and this one, how we interact, how we relate to the world, and how we manifest in the world. And the invitation, of course, from the Buddha is to see the world clearly as impermanent, see all things as changing, as transient, fleeting, when we can appreciate this. And I find that meditation is the way to really develop this awareness of change. Isn't it? When we're sitting meditating, we're actually observing constant change. Nothing lasts. If we're willing to sit steadily through the feelings, the thoughts, perceptions, coming and going, that's what they're doing. They're coming and going. And so this anicca sanya begins to be the lens through which we see the world. And how freeing is that? So much of our suffering comes from a sense of stuckness, I find. Is it the feeling that this will last forever? There's no way out of this. This must be permanent. The dark tunnel with no light at the end. But when we develop anicca sanya, we can relax because we know this is going to change. Nothing stays the same. And we develop the patience through our practice to observe the arisings, the lasting for some time, and then the passings away. And so it is with all things. So this way of seeing the world It's to our great advantage. Helps us to chart our course. Helps the heart to stay peaceful, because when we're steeped in suffering, we can remember this too will change. And when we're overwhelmed with delights, caught up in sense pleasures, we can recognize, yes, well, even within this, there's an inevitable shift coming. And we can maintain, friends, our equanimity then, our even-heartedness, our peacefulness. And the other great delusion, of course, is that sense of self that creeps in, or is really the ocean that we're swimming in. The self-referencing, the small mind that hones in here and makes much of this mind and body. And the sense of permanence is what gives the sense of self. As we develop anicca sanya, we can start to let go of that sense of self, because we see that there's nothing I can hold on to and make mine. These ways of seeing the world, these characteristics of reality help each other, don't they? So when I'm caught up with a sense of me and mine, my problems, my life, my history, my worries, my concerns, my world, then we can take this as an opportunity to come back to anicca sanya and see how this too arises and passes. This too has a life, but like all things, it's born, it lives for a while, and then it dies. And so the Buddha pointed out that we could say that this is dukkha, this reality of constant change, because we can't hold on to anything at all. We're losing everything, every moment. It's not ideal, perhaps. It's unsatisfactory. There is suffering here. But isn't it the case that when we open our hearts to this characteristic of samsara, there is suffering? It's not perfect. It can never be perfect. It's fundamentally flawed, broken. When we open our hearts to this aspect of reality, isn't it extraordinary how there's a kind of opening for true happiness to steal in, to percolate through, because we're then living in Dhamma. We're aligning ourselves with the tree. We're opening to reality, and there's something so very delightful and joyful and peaceful about this recognition. Anicca anatta dukkha. That's how it is, yes. And so we come into our meditation practice, and these realities are clearly presenting themselves to us, are they not? And so slowly but surely we get to dismantle the constructs. We get to ease away from, to slowly relinquish, to extricate ourselves from this sense of me and mine that is so painful for us. Isn't everything that we own going to be lost? But if we can relinquish that ownership here and now, how free we can be, how light. And so our meditation practice enables us to lighten up, to notice how the burden becomes a little bit smaller day by day, even moment by moment. And we can bring in this clear way of seeing the world through the lenses of anicca, anatta, dukkha, the impermanence, not self, imperfect state of things. We can bring this into our everyday lives, keep applying it, keep noticing, where suffering arises, what is the cause of that suffering, what is being held on to, and what can be relinquished through recognition of anicca, anatta, dukkha. And so I'd like to, read you a sutta at this point on this topic. It's called Vipassana Sutta, and it's Anguttara Nikaya 449. This is a beautiful sutta. It's translated by Sujato Bhikkhu as perversions. Vipassana, the distortions of view, the perversions of perception. The Buddha says, mendicants, there are these 4 perversions of perception, thought, and view. What for? Taking impermanence as permanence, taking suffering as happiness, taking not self as self, and taking ugliness as beauty. These are the 4 perversions of perception, thought, and view. There are these 4 corrections of perception, thought, and view. What for? Taking impermanence as impermanence, suffering as suffering, not self as not self, and ugliness as ugliness. These are the 4 corrections of perception, thought, and view. Perceiving impermanence as permanence, suffering as happiness, not self as self, and ugliness as beauty, sentient beings are ruined by wrong view. Deranged, out of their minds. Yoked by Mara's yoke, these people find no sanctuary from the yoke. Sentient beings continue to transmigrate with ongoing birth and death. But when the Buddhas arise in the world, those beacons reveal this teaching that leads to the stilling of suffering. When a wise person hears them, they get their mind back, seeing impermanence as impermanence, suffering as suffering, not self as not self, and ugliness as ugliness. Taking up right view, they've risen above all suffering. So I think this is a wonderful teaching for us to contemplate and bring it in, bring it into our days, our nights, our meditation practice. It's like a healing balm, actually, to be reminded to see the world in this way. I was very struck by Ayya Santusika's words when the Venerable Bhikkhunis were meeting with the Ajahns, and she described the insight of the impersonal nature of relationships, how it was that she came to see that her heart was open to all beings, a heart of loving kindness for all beings, and the sense of distinguishing between this being and that being, a stranger and a relative, an animal and a human, fell away. And this is something we can aspire to, friends, to let go of the sense of self, is to let go of the small world that we're conditioned to inhabit. And community is very helpful for this, no? To be able to come together in numbers and open to Sangha gives us an opportunity to widen and broaden our view and to let go of the small self. Service, supporting one another, selflessly working for the good of the whole, letting go of our own concerns and opening to the group or wider to see what's needed, to see what's helpful, to see what's beneficial, to open to the bigger picture. This is the call, really. This is the invitation. And how was it that the Buddha himself demonstrated this in his last life? The Bodhisattva who gave up, let go of the small world, of the husband, the father, the community member, and he went forth into the great big wide open world to step into the unknown, to open and to let go. Ajahn Chah really focuses so much. My perception of his teachings is one of a consistent theme that he conveyed again and again, that of the invitation, the instruction to let go, let go of everything. And his famous quote, if you let go a little bit, you experience a little bit of peace. If you let go a lot of peace. If you let go entirely, completely, then you have complete peace. There is complete peace. And this exhortation to let go. We can do this when we have these lenses of anicca, anatta, dukkha. Keep seeing the change. Recognizing the unstable, transient, flimsy, fleeting nature of this world, of this body, of our situations. To recognize this is to be able to let go. And the more we let go, truly, the lighter we are, the more we can see, the more we can perceive, the more we can rest in peace. Let's die before we die, friends. Let it all go. And anything that helps us with this, for some people it can be the lens of anicca, predominantly, seeing the change. For others, it may be focusing on when that sense of self comes up. For others, it may be focusing on desire and aversion. When there's a push and pull in the heart, when we start to feel tethered, when we get agitated or reactive because of something happening within or around us, to hone in on this, to focus on the suffering, that is. And for some, it's all lenses together, like the legs of a tripod. We can start to see how they always come together. If there's suffering, there'll be a sense of self. And there'll be a sense of holding to something lasting. There's a me who suffers. If there's no me, there's no suffering. If there's no desire, no holding, there's no suffering. So it's like these things come together, they glom together, they constellate, and there's a knot. There's a knot. And the whole process of path is the releasing, the untying, the disentangling of the knots. Nibbana, one translation of this beautiful word, of course, is no knots, disentangled. And so we find our ways, you know. For one person, it will be pulling on one particular thread. For another person, another thread. But let's bear in mind, anicca, anatta, dukkha, right view, the clear seeing. And notice when we're falling into delusion, when the perversions are playing out, when we're holding to anything at all as lasting, when we're forgetting that there is suffering here and getting lost in fleeting pleasures, when we're holding to a sense of identity, to notice how irksome that is, how uncomfortable that is. And it's a process, isn't it? Because at first, when we perhaps begin our spiritual practice, we're very comfortable with our suffering. We're resting in it. It's familiar and it's home for us. It might be painful and uncomfortable. It might actually be like a prison cell of sorts, but we love it. And so we train ourselves, don't we, friends, to incline our hearts towards greater happiness and greater happiness. And it's a learning process. It's like the peace is an acquired taste. Happiness is unfamiliar for many of us. We're not quite comfortable with it. Lightness can feel very frightening for us. And so it is that we go step by step and slowly disincline towards dukkha and incline our hearts towards freedom. I want to wish you all a very smooth and joyful journey, opening to the clear seeing that gives peace, that unties the knots, that leads to nibbana. Airwam.
Handamayam Dhammakataya Sadhu Karam Dhamase Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu Anumodami.
Thank you so much for the beautiful teachings, Ayya. If you're up for it, we will now have a time of questions and answers. Both people in person can ask questions and those joining on Zoom.
Hi, Ayya. Thank you so much for that teaching. I had a question about seeing ugliness as ugliness and how to work with that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is a good question because that's not the, the other three have a very clear two sides, anicca, anatta, dukkha, permanent, not self, and suffering, rather happiness is actually suffering. But this one, to see beauty where there is only ugliness, is something to really contemplate. And just reminded, of the nutrients, the nutriments. That's what comes to my mind, Vandana, in relation to this, that, for instance, the Buddha said food, which we generally see as pleasant, at least when we're hungry, enticing, delicious, attractive, not ugly, not foul. The Buddha said, consider that this actually is not so beautiful. And in order to eat, in order to fuel the body, we have to, just by the nature of these bodies and samsara, existence, material, we have to destroy something else in order to eat. We may kill animals, we may kill vegetation. The Buddha said, relate to food as like dead son's flesh, something dear to you that has to die in order for us to be nourished. And this is an incredible reality check for us, because it's not at all how we're conditioned to see food. And the relishing of food is part of nature's way that we incline towards eating and keeping the body alive. But we can see that what appears to be beautiful when we contemplate this more deeply is actually quite ugly. Also, we can consider what happens to food as we digest it. What it turns into is very unpleasant for us, very unattractive to us. And these contemplations can be very helpful, particularly if we have a lot of desire around food. The other nutriments the Buddha talks about are like contact for the mind, consciousness itself. And in the same way, we relate to these things with delight through our conditioning. But when we look clearly and contemplate deeply, we can see that these too are painful and unattractive. You know, the Buddha said consciousness is like being hit by spears. The impingement is like a kind of torture for us. We don't necessarily experience this. We don't experience feelings as like a flayed cow that's being feasted upon by insects, another simile the Buddha gives us. We don't experience feelings in that way all the time, but he's really telling us from the perspective of one who knows that all of this experience is like a bombardment for us that is not attractive, that is not pleasant, that is not in our interests. Sense desire, elsewhere in the Anthill Sutta, the Buddha refers to sense desire as like a hammer and a block. It's like being pulverized when we incline our hearts towards sense pleasures and their gratification. So these images, very graphic and very unpleasant images and similes for us, are helpful to turn us from the perversions of view towards something more realistic. And I'm not expecting everyone to immediately think and agree that these are very accurate ways in which we all perceive the world as ugly, as painful. And it sounds grim, you know, in fact, when we speak in this way. But to just, you know, give some heart space, give some time to consider the possibility that what seems beautiful may actually be ugly is just so freeing for us. Particularly for people who incline towards desire, for the greed types. People who relish and love and make much of material things. For us, it's very helpful to cool that down, to balance that out. You know, like when I'm eating, to remember what happens to the food and just to remember the suffering that may have gone into its production. This is so calming. This is so balancing. And so I'm not asking us all to, you know, dwell in disgust and aversion and to be horrified by these kinds of teachings, but rather to contemplate them and recognize that this path is a path of joy. It is a path of happiness and well-being. It truly is it not? Step by step, we lighten up, we free up, we can really relax. It's such a path of peace. But in order to really clear up and, how to say, correct some distortions of view, it can be helpful to consider these. ways of viewing the nutriments, that which we are programmed to enjoy and relish. I hope that's helpful.
So whenever I think of no self, well, sometimes there's a sense of peace, but sometimes there's this sense of fear attached to it too. And I think if I were to kind of reflect on it, there's this sense of attaching consciousness to it, and a fear that no self means end of consciousness. And then I wonder, is consciousness permanent? I don't know if you have any words of advice on that.
Thank you. That's a really beautiful and profound question. Of course, yes, consciousness is not permanent in the way that we experience it. And this is something quite difficult to get our heads around. Because getting your head around something requires consciousness. So this is beyond our ability to comprehend, you know. This can only be experienced. And how do we experience the letting go of consciousness? Well, it's a process, this path, as I said earlier, step by step, we let go a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And the letting go of consciousness is a very, how to say, comes along quite far along the path. Because first there's so much else that's binding us. There's so much else that's distorting our view, that's burdening us, that's making us unhappy. There's so many fetters, you know, we're like a prisoner in a way, you know, in a cell somewhere with chains around our limbs and a great big heavy ball to drag around with us. This is the state of things for us in actuality as we begin to practice as regular people. And slowly we start to notice as we develop our practice where we're caught up, where we're tethered, what heavy loads we're carrying, and we slowly can begin to relinquish and step forward. And as you point out, you know, friend, it can be fearful to step into the unknown. That is the process, isn't it, though, for us? When we let go, we're not getting something, we're relinquishing. And so it sort of leaves more of a sense of space, emptiness, the sense of identity as we let go of that. It's like, well, who am I then? What is there then? Where's my direction? We can be floundering for a while as we let go of this and let go of that. There can be a sense of the unbearable lightness of being, you know. It's not familiar, that's all. But if we're willing to be with the fear and just keep breathing and just stay present, then we can adapt and get used to a lighter way of being. And so it goes on. And before we let go of consciousness and recognize that we are not that, there are so many steps and stages, so many things to let go of first. For instance, to let go of desire, to let go of aversion, to let go of reactivity, to let go of all the defilements, impatience, contempt, envy, avarice, arrogance, jealousy, and so on and so on. And there's no way in which we can order these things, right? It's just meeting what comes up. So in our practice, we are always going to be given, honestly, the Dharma is so amazing This path of practice is so amazing. We're always going to meet the next obstacle. It will present itself to us if we stay steady, stay present, stay mindful. Just precisely what needs to be seen will be seen. Just exactly what's holding us back will be revealing itself. We'll notice the fetters as we start to move and free ourselves up. We'll notice the next thing that's obstructing us from freedom. And that's what we want to deal with. So not to seek to let go of consciousness, not to seek. We may read about different attainments in the Pali Canon, the jhana. We may learn about the attainments on the spiritual path, the 4 stages, leading us towards complete liberation, the arahant. And we can contemplate all of these teachings, and it's very inspiring to do so. But we don't need to try and compare ourselves or fit ourselves into these various stages and states. Not at all. Just be present, and the path will unfold naturally, step by step. And we just meet the next challenge. And we can be sure that we're all moving in the same direction, friends, but we all have different karmic predicaments, different places where we're stuck, and we have to find our own ways to extricate ourselves. So I really hope that makes sense. And thank you for your question. It's a big question. I could go on, but I'm not going to. I think I'll stop here.
Thank you for your talk. You started by saying that we tend to see permanence where there's impermanence. We tend to see separation where there's not separation, and I agree with that. And so I pondered that. Why is that? And an answer that came to me is that we do that to help with our survival. It seems like there are times, let's say, if I am 5 aggregates, for the survival of the 5 aggregates, it's like there needs to be a view of separation at times and a view of permanence. And yet at the same time, it helps to see impermanence. Like if I'm experiencing sadness, if I view it as permanent, then I lose hope. But if I view it as impermanent, it gives me hope. And when you talk about viewing nutrients as ugly, it's like I need to see it as beautiful, because if I see it as ugly, I may not want to ingest it. So it seems like both views can be helpful.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that. Very balancing comment, because it really is a balancing act, isn't it, friend? And we need to know for ourselves, how to place ourselves in this field for the benefit, for the path to unfold in a good way. And, if honestly, the truth is that there is nothing to hold on to, and we don't need to support the aggregates. We don't need to eat. We don't need to take in contact. But we are compelled to do these things, and we can find our way to see what serves us best, depending on to what degree we're compelled. A lot of monastics, are inclined towards wisdom, towards aversion. They're more aversive types. Generally speaking, the Buddha said, those who are more inclined towards aversion, this is as opposed to desire and wanting and relishing and delighting in samsara. Those who incline towards aversion are wiser, and they are seeing more clearly. But if one has an inclination to aversion as a way of seeing the world, it is not necessarily so helpful to contemplate the ugliness of things. Indeed, the Buddha said, the balance for the aversive type is to develop loving kindness, to soften the heart, to open the heart, to incline towards the divine abidings. This is a balancing, a skillful way, a skillful kind of remedy to bring in to find the right way to proceed. For those who are more inclined to relishing, it's very helpful to try to let go of that with these contemplations on the ugliness, on dukkha, And as you say, in order to survive, we have to eat, we have to function in the world, we have to look after these bodies. Indeed, it's skillful and wholesome to take care of this human body. This human life is, as the Buddha said, so precious. This is our vehicle for liberation. This is our temple for practice. This body and mind, this is the universe for us, isn't it? This is our place of practice, without which we're not going to be able to liberate the heart, liberate the mind. So, of course, it's good to take care of this mind and body. But, life trajectory being what it is, there'll come a point sooner or later when we're going to lose it all. This body and mind is going. It's on death row. And it's good to recognize that also. So to remember constantly and consistently, isn't it, friends, in the Tibetan tradition, the contemplation of death, Maranasati, is a daily observation. And for us also, in the Theravada tradition, there's a strong encouragement from the Buddha to bring in Maranasati, contemplation of death. So even as we look after these bodies, we can recognize that the more we cherish them, the more we're going to suffer when the end comes. Can we rather, again, find the balance, take care, honor, respect, love these bodies and minds, serve them so that they can practice for liberation, and at the same time recognize that, like with King Pasenadi, the Buddha said to him, imagine there's a mountain hurtling towards you from the south, a mountain hurtling towards you from the north, and two coming in from the east and west. What would you do knowing that? So to bear in mind consistently that we're on death row, that death is hurtling towards us. And so it behooves us to behave with an attitude of letting go. How do I make the most of this moment? And what's the answer that King Pasenadi gave? It's so beautiful. He said, well, if that were the case, if there are these four mountains hurtling towards me, i.e., the end is nigh, then I would make merit. I would be generous. I would give, because that I could do in the short time I have left. So friends, getting the right balance between letting go of this mind and body and taking care of it is for all of us, the work that we're all doing. And I really appreciate you pointing this out, because each one of us has to find out, has to discern, and it's always changing also. But where are we standing? Which way are we veering? Are we holding on? Are we letting go? What do we need at this point to incline us towards this path of practice? And it's different things at different times. But let's remember Maranasati, because remembering imminent death is a wonderful way to focus the mind and heart on practice, and to know it tells us what is the best use of our time right now. This sense of urgency, it gives us a sharpness and a clarity. Thank you, friend.
Thank you so much for your wise words, Ayya. Can we offer 3 sparkly Clear Mountain sadhus? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So again, thank you so much, Ayya. Where can we find your teachings and offer support?
That's so kind of you to ask. You can see, I think, on my screen that there's a website, and that's where you can find my teachings. I also have a YouTube channel, which you can access through the website. And it gives me great joy to offer the Dharma, so I hope that these teachings can be helpful for anyone who's interested to have a look.